Good morning to all you Broncos fans out there. Hope you have your coffee ready for an early 7 a.m. edition of Legends of Mile High. And I'm your host, Thomas Hall, where we talk about history and we talk current events. And today we have more rumors to talk about when it comes to the Broncos wide receivers. It feels like they just won't go away. We've been hearing these rumors that the Broncos were going to trade Cortland Sutton or they were going to trade Jerry Judy. I don't know. It seems like for months now, but they haven't been traded yet. So we'll dive into that a little bit, and I'm going to tell another Mile High legend about a town called Birmingham, Alabama, and how the Broncos were nearly moving to that town. So stick with me till the end, and we will go through that Mile High legend. But first, we're going to say good morning to some folks in the chat. We've got some people in here early, so I appreciate you guys jumping in. We've got Dominique Martin coming in saying, "Hey, Tom, I was watching some old Rod Smith, man. Undrafted phenomenon. Mile High Huddle for night life." Yeah, good morning, Dominic. Appreciate you being here this morning or bright and early. So thank you for being here live. Yeah, it's a great comment. Rod Smith, he's one of the best undrafted players of all time, one of the best undrafted wide receivers of all time, for sure. In fact, he holds the touchdown record for undrafted wide receivers, and I believe still yards, maybe not catches. I think what's his name there that played for the Wes Welker. Sorry. Yeah, it's early. I stayed up way too late last night, so my brain's taking some time. But yeah, Rod Smith, great wide receiver. In fact, from 2000 2001, he can be argued as the best receiver in the game at that time. Even if you look at his stats and what he was able to do those 2 years, even when you had Terrell Owens, you had Randy Moss, that time you had, all these Hall of Famers, but he was right at the top with all of them. So yeah, Rod Smith, amazing player. Thank you very much. We got Cameron Petway coming in saying John Elway, Terrell Davis, Carl Mecklenburg, and Champ Bailey is on his Mount Rushmore. Well, thank you for coming in, Cameron. I appreciate that. And yeah, that's a great list, man. It's you have 3 of the 4 on my Mount Rushmore. I put Pat Bowlen on there just because how much he meant to the Broncos, to the NFL, the city of Denver, and the success that he had while he was an owner and how he went about his business. But you can't argue with Carl Mecklenburg, man. One of my favorite players of all time. I loved playing or watching him play when I was young. It was amazing. Great story. What a remarkable career. But yeah, you should definitely go on to the Legends of Mile High playlist and go check out when he was on the show. He was gracious enough to be here. It was wonderful to have him on. He's a wealth of football knowledge, of course. So yeah, check it out. It was a great interview. One of my early shows. I was only like the 4th or 5th show that I did, so I was a little still a little green trying to interview the great Carl Mecklenburg, but it was a heck of a lot of fun and had some great comments for the season. So appreciate it. We're going to say good morning to Dave Glassman. Thank you for coming in this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Scott Dillon's coming in saying good morning, Tom. Thank you for being here, Scott. Really appreciate it. Coming in from Facebook. We got Amy Ailes saying good morning. So good morning to you. Thank you so much. And Dom's coming in this morning. Good to see you this morning, Dom. Good morning, Thomas Hall and Broncos country. Let's go Lakers. Denver Broncos for life. Oh, man, you're a Lakers fan, huh? I'm not a big basketball fan. I used to love to watch basketball back in the day, but I kind of got in the 2000s when it was, seemed to be all about the players, not the team. And I kind of got disenchanted with basketball. But there's a team that's really kind of coming on now. And who knows, they might make some noise, even though they're a lower seeded team. But yeah, I'm not a Lakers guy. I think I'm a Bulls fan from back in the day, but I really don't care. I grew up watching the 76ers. I actually started watching the Sixers because of Dr. J. So Julius Erving. That was my team in back when I was really young. And then, Michael Jordan, of course, was great. So going to say good morning to Michaela Israels. He's saying good morning, guys. Thank you very much for coming in. We got Michaela and Michaela back to back. Michaela Parker saying good morning as well. And Amy wants to say that her favorite all-time Broncos, remember, John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, and Jason Elam, that are my favorite all-time best Broncos to remember. Well, and that's an interesting list. I mean, I can understand why you would like all of them, but very few people put Jason Elam on their kind of Mount Rushmore or their favorites of all time because he's a kicker, but is completely instrumental in making sure that that team was always in the game at the end. If he had needed to come in and make that kick, it seemed like he always made that kick to save the game or win the game or whatever. So yeah, incredible kicker. He really does have I would say a resume or argument for the Hall of Fame. Now, I'm not a big fan of putting in special teamers because they don't play as much, but he has an argument for sure. And a lot of special teamers get overlooked. So it's going to be a very long time, if he ever gets in. But yeah, he's definitely worthy of it. And then we've got Dom saying his Mount Rushmore is Champ Bailey, Shannon Sharp, Rod Smith, Al Wilson, and Terrell Davis. Got 5 on. They got an honorable mention, but all good players too, man. Al Wilson, I loved watching him play. That he was kind of the last, real kind of rangy stud middle linebacker from the olden days. As the game has kind of changed, you don't have that player anymore. Really, there are very few of them left, and he was one of those that were kind of that throwback still from back in the day. I loved watching him play, man, and his injury cut his career short. But if he wasn't injured, he would also have an argument for the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, it was fun to watch him. I remember him, playing that Raiders game when he hit Tyrone Wheatley, who jumped in the air and they collided. It was great viewing. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, thank you for that, Dom. It was great. Great. It's great to reminisce about these old players for sure. And we've got another one, Gary Fire saying Rich Karlis with the barefoot kicks. Yeah, I actually did a Mile High Legend about Rich Karlis, so I don't remember which one it was, but it was fun talking about why he became a barefoot kicker, and it was an interesting story, really. A barefoot kicker, that he was the last one really to do it full time. I know that Wilkins tried it for a little while, but by midseason he had the shoe back on. So, yeah, that Rich Karlis, awesome. Swink McLeod. Oh, okay. Good morning, Swink McLeod. Appreciate you being here. Sharp, Atwater, Vaughn, and Elway. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what. The thing with Vaughn, I love Vaughn. He's one of the best. He's going to go down as one of the best edge rushers of all time. And unfortunately, he's not going to finish his career or be close to finishing his career in Denver. He got traded away and now he's with the Bills. And that really bothers me because if he'd have stuck around, he would be considered one of the greatest Broncos of all time. I mean, he still really is, but it's not the same, right? You let your Hall of Famer walk too early. You traded him away. It kind of ruined it a little bit, I think, because he could have amassed even more records, more production in a Broncos uniform. So I still have a little bit of animosity towards George Pate for trading him away. I still do. And even whether it was the right thing to do or not, I didn't like it. And we've got Michael Ronquillo coming in this morning. Good morning, Michael. It's great to see you here. Appreciate you being here. Saying good morning, Thomas Hall on Legends of Mile High. Go Broncos and Buckham. Yeah, Michael, you're one of the greatest supporters of Mile High Huddle. So we can't even really put into words the gratitude that we have for you being on the show and the support you give. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And we're going to say good morning to Jeremy Sean. Good morning, Jeremy. It's good to see you here this morning. Appreciate your comments. And Jeremy says, morning, Thomas. Draft season equals rumor season. And it sure does. And that's what we're going to talk about, man. It's these rumors just won't die about the wide receivers, right? And it started, man, it seems like it started before the season was even over. It feels like it's been that long that we've been talking about Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy not going to be on the team. It's going to be traded before the draft, and now it might be traded. They might be traded during the draft, but this they had a report, and it was I can't pronounce his name really well. Jeff Zrebeck, I think it was, from The Athletic, talking about how there was a deal basically done with the Ravens, pretty much done. I don't know what that means, how far along they were, but they had negotiated a trade, and then the Broncos backed out of the trade. Excuse me. Had backed out of the trade, and then they signed Odell Beckham Jr., Why they backed out, I don't know. How far along they really have went to get that deal ready. I don't know how far along they really were. Maybe they had a deal in hand and the Broncos just said no. I don't know. But my feeling has always been if the Broncos really wanted to trade Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, if they just wanted to get them off of the team and get something back for them, they'd be gone already, right? They would have taken what they could get. It sounds like they want a high price for them, and most teams aren't willing to pay it. The Ravens obviously were close to paying their price, it seems, but maybe they just didn't. I don't know. Maybe they just couldn't get the exact thing that they wanted. I don't know, but it's still my feelings. It's rumors. Who knows what? Maybe they're trying to drum up more value for them by saying the Ravens almost paid what we wanted. I don't know. I think it's a mistake to trade either receiver because they don't have anything else in place. I know that they have Tim Patrick coming back from injury, and I love Tim Patrick, but he is coming back from injury. He may not be as really good as he was this year. It might take him a while to get back to where he was. So there's a question mark there. KJ Hamler is a question mark. They don't have anybody else really ready to roll unless they're going to say we want to go with 2 tight ends instead of 3 wide receivers, and we're going to go with 2 backs or whatever, and then play a different game. Really, Sutton and Jeudy are your only really solid players that you can count on at the moment. And I know they could draft a wide receiver, but they only have a 3rd round draft choice, so that's going to be a little tougher to make sure you hit on that. So it's a bit, I don't know. It's almost like they know that people or other teams kind of want them, and they're just trying to see if they can get something really good for them, and someone overpays for them. And otherwise, if they don't, they're just gonna, bring them back and make sure they're on the team. And I know that I'm probably in the minority on this. I'm not a huge fan of paying wide receivers big money. I think if you have an elite quarterback, you can get away with lesser wide receivers. But they've already paid, Cortland Sutton. They already gave him his money. So if they were going to let him walk, they should have let him walk before, giving him his money, right? And having that cap hit. I think you should draft a wide receiver in the 2nd round pretty much every year and just let your the upcoming free agent walk. Unless they're, obviously a Hall of Famer type. If you got the second coming of Randy Moss or something like that, of course, don't trade that person away. But, if they're just a good wide receiver, let them go and fill them in, because actually the 2nd round has been proven to be a better option at finding a wide receiver who can create an impact on your team than the 1st round. You get these 1st round wide receivers that get drafted, and there's so many busts that come out because they're going for these speedy wide receivers and trying to grab it. So, it's interesting, but that's my wide receiver spiel. But I just don't understand why there's so much talk about it when it hasn't been a realistic thing, right? It's not been a realistic trade scenario yet. Everybody that has brought up the rumors has said it's not going to work out because the Broncos want too much. Well, if they want too much, it's not going to be a fair market value trade, so no one's going to trade for it. So it's kind of like somebody putting a way too high of a price on their car for sale and never getting what they want because they really don't want to get rid of their car. So, but if someone blows them away, they'll do it. So it's interesting. So we got a couple other people coming in here. We got Albert Knoppers this morning. Good morning, Albert. Great to see you here. Albert says good morning to Thomas. That's me and all who chimed in. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And then we got another comment from Facebook user coming in from Facebook. I don't know your name, but thank you for being here. Saying good morning, Thomas. Does it frustrate you knowing that the Broncos seem to have deals in place but back out at the last minute? If they're going to make a deal, make a deal. Just my thoughts. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like I said, it's almost like they are exploring what they could get, and it's not been enough. So if it's not enough, then they're really not backing out of the deal, I guess. It's more give us more than you want to give, or we're not trading them kind of thing. And so, and maybe at the draft, the first day of the draft, you see them move one of these wide receivers because someone's like, okay, we need a wide receiver. We're not getting what we want, so we're going to give you something more. But, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'm not too frustrated because I don't want them. I want them on the team. They already paid Tim Patrick. They already paid Cortland Sutton. Jerry Judy's going to be your number one wide receiver. Why get rid of him at this point? If you want to get rid of him, get rid of him next year when the cap hit is a little lower, and you might get something more from him because they might have Cortland Sutton might have a really good productive season this year. With a new offense, his value might skyrocket. So I don't know why they want to get rid of him so soon. Yeah, and Michael's coming in saying Baltimore Ravens was one of the teams for Cortland Sutton trade before they decided to sign Odell Beckham Jr. Yeah, Michael, and that's the report, right? Was they had a deal in place or close to a deal, and the Broncos backed out. I think the Ravens were willing to go for it, and then they signed Odell Beckham Jr. because if you believe what the report says, that the Broncos said, no, we're not going to do this. And so they were kind of forced to go with Odell Beckham Jr., which is interesting. I don't know which came first. Did they actually say, okay, well, did the Ravens go, now we're going to go with Odell Beckham Jr., and then the Broncos kind of backed out? I don't know, but it's still just a rumor. I don't know how valid any of these rumors are. Like I said, we've been talking about the wide receivers being moved for a couple months, it seems, and they haven't been. So if they're like I said, if they really wanted to move a wide receiver, they would have done it already, and they would have done it for a third or fourth rounder, and been happy with it. But it seems like they don't really want to do that. And Albert's coming in saying, we do not want to trade a wide receiver. That's why the price they ask is so high. Exactly. There I think that's what it is, Albert. It's like they don't really want to trade them again. They don't really want to trade them unless someone blows them away with the deal. And that's it. It's like something that you love, that you have, that you don't really want to sell, but someone wants it so bad that they give you enough money for it. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think, I don't see them trading them maybe at the draft day, but if they get through the draft and the draft's over, I don't think they're going to trade them. I think the trade has to happen in the draft, and if it doesn't, I don't think it's going to happen at all. So like I said, I don't want them traded. And Jeremy's saying all these rumors might be advertising the current guys if the Broncos draft a wide receiver early in the draft. It's possible, right? Yeah, it's possible, but I think they're kind of putting the cart before the horse, right? They're saying we want to move up in the draft, so give us a great draft pick for one of these wide receivers so that we can go maybe get a wide receiver in the draft. So it's kind of one of those things. They got 2 third rounders, and although the third round is not a bad round, looking at the analytics to find a wide receiver, it's actually a pretty decent round, really not great. But as the draft goes on, the probability of getting an impact player lessens, of course. But a third round wide receiver could be a hit, and it's happened before. But again, I think that if they wanted to draft a wide receiver, they would want to get a second round for Sutton so they could draft another wide receiver. So it's one of those games where you keep playing it and nothing ever happens. So it's interesting. I hope they go after a center in the draft, not a wide receiver with one of those third round picks. And I know that's not a sexy pick, so to speak, to not get a skill player, but the Broncos have to get a center coming out of this draft for a couple reasons. One, Cushenberry is still unproven, right? He's had a struggling. He's struggled for the last 3 years, to say the least. But he's also going to be an unrestricted free agent. And they brought Kyle Fuller in as a backup or to push him as a starter, but I think that's only a 1-year deal, so they're going to be pretty thin at center. And I know they drafted Wattenberg, and he played a little bit last year. He struggled, and he could be their replacement going forward, but I don't know how much they think he is going to be a replacement. He doesn't kind of fit that new, I don't know, that power kind of big, more strong, powerful lineman that they're going with so far, who they brought in from free agency, and why they're sticking with Cushenberry, who they signed Kyle Fuller, who's big. So he may not be in their plans. So I think they have to go after a center with one of those first third round picks. So, that leaves you with one more. And I don't know. I just have a strange feeling if they get who they want with that first pick in the third round, they will trade back. They will try to accumulate more picks because that second, third round pick comes right after the Broncos' first pick, and they may want to try and gather some more draft picks by moving back a little bit. So that's my feeling. But if they don't hit on that player that they really want, then they may keep it. I don't know. And I know that's sounds crazy, like, oh well, there's two options, but I feel like they would do that, and so we'll see. And Michael Ronquillo is agreeing with me. Center is still a need because we don't know if Lloyd Cushenberry is a fit in Sean Payton's offense. Yeah, it's strange, and I've been saying this. The reason why they're keeping Cushenberry around, I think, is because Sean Payton may have liked him coming out of college and thought he was a fit. He kind of does, his draft profile, so to speak, really did fit what Sean Payton wants. Now, I don't think he really showed that on the field in the NFL, but a lot of times a new coach will come in and think that they liked a guy coming out of college. They think they can resurrect their career and make them better. So that's interesting. Lawrence, good morning, Lawrence Rivera. Thank you for coming in this morning. It's great to see you coming in with Facebook stars. Thank you so much for the support. I always appreciate it. And I always appreciate you being here on the show or any show that, I'm doing a couple shows. We got this show, got Mile High Insiders on Wednesday, and Orange and Blue View on Saturday. It's it's a pretty it's a lot to take on, but man, I love doing these podcasts. So it's fun to interact with you all, and I appreciate it. But Lawrence says, I honestly love our wide receiver core, but they are mediocre. Honestly, no one has shown starter abilities. Maybe glance, but not all the time. I got you. So sometimes they show flashes, right? Yeah, and that's true. I think Sutton showed early on that I thought he was going to be a star, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't been the same. Now, what I'll tell you though, it's hard to judge just how good either Judy or Cortland Sutton can be because the offense was so terrible last year. It was just a mess. So we'll see this year. If they stick around, they aren't traded. We'll see if they're going to hit that star quality again. Because if you think about Sutton, he was ascending, hit that, got hurt. And then by the time he healed up and was ready to play at 100%, he got stuck in a mess of an offense. So we'll see how good he is. We'll see how good Jerry Jeudy is as well. Hopefully both of them can reach their potential, because I like both of them. I think they both have that star quality, but you're right, they haven't put it all together. And on the field, if you look at their production over the last couple of years, it's been good, but not great. So it's a mediocre, just like you said. But again, I think they can be better. And I think Sean Payton, that offensive scheme, what he brings, how, if he can, get Russell Wilson, back to that kind of elite status that he was, I think you're going to see a better Jeudy and a better Sutton, and you're going to see Tim Patrick too. Once he starts to get back to form, it's going to be a good trio to watch. So if they stick around, and then Lawrence coming back in saying, that being said, though, I don't think we get another wide receiver to cover anybody on our team if we get rid of one. Yeah, I think that's true. If you get rid of one, it really hurts that position. And this is what I've been saying about the Broncos since they really got in, through that first wave of free agency, is the starters look okay, but the depth, they are really suffering in the depth on several areas of the team, and they still need to bring in, I think, a couple experienced guys on the cheap in a couple spots to kind of fill out that depth. I don't know if they want to really go into the season still with Isaiah Prince on the offensive tackle as the swing tackle. That's a tough pill to swallow there. You really want that's your guy to be that swing tackle. That to me is strange. And then your defensive line, you lost two starters, only brought one starter back in. It's going to be a tough, that's another one. You're going to rely on these young guys who hopefully can take that next step. I like both of them. I like both the rookies they drafted last year, but they need to, that's a big risk to have your rotation, some, solid starters, one starter who's, getting up there in age for a defensive lineman and Mike Purcell. And then you've got a bunch of young guys behind them. And that's a tough one for me. I don't know. So there's some depth issues, I believe. And you could even say that about the wide receiver core, even though you've got three really good ones and you got KJ Hamler, the health and of that core and the injuries that KJ Hamler seems to suffer every year, that's another area that is going to be tough, especially if you get rid of one of them. You're going to have a thin, really thin wide receiver core. Oh, so I'm getting on my draft and free agency horse here, and I really should be talking about these wide receivers. But yeah, I'm gonna start to wrap up the show here in a little bit. I'm gonna talk about the Mile High legend here in just a bit, but I'm just gonna grab a couple more comments if anybody's coming in with some comments. We got a comment from Gary Fire saying Peyton paid Michael Thomas. I think he's scared from that. Yeah, that could be, but yeah, but Michael Thomas was, I mean, during that time, Michael Thomas was one of the best wide receivers in the game, right? Like he was amazing. He was, I mean, for those few years, he was, like I said, probably arguably the best wide receiver in the game. Really good wide receiver. So he paid him a lot. But the difference is that the Broncos already paid Patrick and Sutton. In fact, their deals aren't even that detrimental to the team, in my opinion. I think they got a pretty good deal, especially if you look at those wide receivers who got paid after them. People were all saying, "Oh, that was a great deal." So, yeah, to me, it's again, if you're going to get rid of your wide receivers, don't pay them first, right? Let them go and backfill them with a second or third round pick every year if you can, and let them go. Don't pay them the big money. So hopefully they both just pan out and are great players. So, and we got Larry, no filter, saying cornerback is really thin too. And you're right on that, Larry. I think the depth of cornerback is thin. I like the cornerback group though. I really do. If Mathis takes that next step, and I think Mathis was a solid player by the end of the year. He had his rough patches to start out, but by the time the year ended, he was a really solid wide receiver as a rookie. So I'm hoping, and I think the team thinks that he's going to take that next step as a second-year player. So you have Tim Patrick on one side, Mathis, who's an ascending player. Hopefully he doesn't have a sophomore slump. And then you got Quan Williams in as the nickelback. And then they brought on Smith as a depth piece. So I think the cornerback room isn't bad. It would be nice to bring in maybe one more just in case, but it's not bad. The safety positions are where it's thin to me. I think they only have 4 safeties on the roster at the moment. So, they're going to have to bring some safeties in to just add camp bodies to at the least, because you don't want your 4 safeties going into training camp without anybody backing them up. But I think that's a solid group if Caden Stearns can bounce back from his injury and make another leap. I think Simmons and Caden Stearns is a pretty good duo. I think PJ Locke's an okay player, but really solid depth. And I really want to see what De'Aaron Turner-Yell can do. Right, like what is he going to do a second year? He didn't play very much. I liked him coming out of college. I think he's a pretty dynamic player. He actually was PJ Locke, right? That kind of like a PJ Locke, but more athletic, right? A little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic. So I think he has a higher ceiling. So hopefully that, that 5th rounder turns out too. So have a couple 5th rounders on the safety position that turn out. So that'd be great. And we've got the legend coming in, Legends of Mile High. Michael Ronquillo coming in to say, great show today, Thomas, on Legends of Mile High. Go Broncos and Buckham. Coming in with the Facebook stars. Yeah, I appreciate all the support. Like I said, I just can't put into words how much we appreciate you, Michael. Appreciate you being here. You always have some great comments. So thank you so much. Really, really, again, appreciate the support so much. And, it's not easy getting up at, and getting here at 7 a.m. and listening to the show. I understand it, and it's early, but, it's fun to kind of start the morning with this show. So I appreciate you being here. All right. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and start the Mile High Legend now. Next week, I'm going to start bringing this Mile High Legend back again. It takes a little bit of research and some time to put this together. So sometimes I may not have it, but I do want to try and get that back. So next week, I think I'm going to bring Ed McCaffrey, one of the Broncos, favorites of the Broncos fans back in the day, watching him play. So there's a little story about Ed McCaffrey that I want to talk about, which is interesting. So at least it is interesting to me. But now we're going to talk about something else. So, and I really just want to say before I finish this off, thank you all for being here. Thank you for the support and thank you for being in the chat. I appreciate it. Keith Brugman, I see you in there. Thank you for coming in. I don't know if I got to your comments, but I appreciate you being here, Keith. Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about some past history of the Denver Broncos. So it's really tough to imagine the Broncos not playing football in the Mile High City, right? I mean, for fans and residents of Denver, the team really is almost a part of us at this point. And this beloved team that the fans adore, the team that has one of the longest consecutive sellout streaks, along with this massively long waiting list for season tickets. I'm on this list, and I don't know if I'll ever get season tickets. They nearly changed cities. The Broncos really began their football life barely hanging on to that dream of remaining a professional football team. And they were a startup team in the Startup American Football League in 1960. And they were consistently one of the worst teams. And that struggle to win by itself made it difficult to survive. But there were also other issues, right? The Broncos were struggling financially. And in 1965, only 5 years after starting the club, the minority owner partnership wanted to sell the team. And the largest stakeholder and future Broncos Ring of Fame owner, Gerald Phipps, did not. He wanted them to remain in Denver. But however, there was this group from Atlanta. They were championing the bid to have a team move to that city, and their sights were set on the Broncos. And that prompted the Broncos minority owners to try a coup of sorts by banding together and blocking the majority vote that Phipps had. And so they were negotiating with this Atlanta group for months, really, to try and get the Broncos sold and sent to Atlanta. But Phipps coaxed his brother into buying the minority owner's shares. So that basically was a salvation for the Broncos of sorts, right? But only a short-term stay of execution, really, so to speak. A single year later, the NFL-AFL merger was announced and put the Broncos in another bind. The NFL had a stadium attendance requirement of 50,000. Now, even though there was renewed excitement for the Broncos and they had one of the largest rushes on season tickets in the entire NFL, the Broncos were an old baseball stadium. In fact, it was called Bears Stadium. And that capacity was only 34,000. So there was no way they could fit 50,000 people to meet that requirement. And the owners didn't have the financial means to expand, having been struggling on the field, just to field the team and stay solvent. And if they couldn't expand the stadium, they were going to move the team. And Birmingham, Alabama was identified as the front runner of where they would move to. And what happened next was really an extraordinary effort in crowdsourcing before that was even a real term, before that was a common term like we know it today. So newly drafted first-round draft choice Floyd Little, along with many of the other Broncos, actually went door to door. And some of them even traveled to other states in an effort to raise money and get people together, to band together and save the Broncos and keep them in Denver. Many Denver businesses and residents kind of banded together to raise that money. And it ended up being enough to expand Bears Stadium. So the funds raised was enough to expand the stadium. They built onto it, and they met the requirements of the NFL, and they renamed it Mile High Stadium. And the Birmingham Broncos were really a breath away from being a real team. It is nearly unfathomable to me today to think that the Broncos were not going to be a part of Denver, right? If it wasn't for the community coming together, the Mile High City would not have 3 Lombardis sitting in the headquarters at Denver. And we would likely be cheering for a different emblem adorning the helmet of a differently named football team, if at all. And that is your Mile High legend. Thank you for joining, and have a great day, Broncos fans. Lawrence, thank you so much for coming in last minute with Facebook Stars for the support. Man, we really appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to the Mile High Legend, and have a great day, Broncos fans.